Welcome back to our recorded lecture for Chapter 2 CST 110 team. As we were previously discussing, how do we form impressions? So we initially talked about physical appearance and implicit personality theory, and the last strategy that we use to form impressions is through assumed similarity. So when you are meeting someone for the first time, you may form an impression by thinking that others who share characteristics with you also share additional characteristics in common. So for instance, say that you are a Trump supporter and you see someone who says that he or she is a Republican. What do you assume? You may immediately assume that this person is a Trump supporter. However, the person may identify as a Republican, but they may not necessarily support Trump. The same thing goes with if you are identifying yourself as a Democrat. Let's say that you are identified as a Democrat. You meet someone who identifies as a Democrat. You may automatically start talking to the individual about what is happening with the rights for DACA recipients or Dreamers. And you may believe that you share the same common beliefs as to how we should approach DACA recipients or Dreamers. So, in this case, if the other person tells you, wait a minute, I don't agree with your point of view, you may initially be shocked, and the reason is because you used assumed similarity. Remember, you created an impression by thinking, wait, we have all of these things in common, so you automatically should believe this because that's what I believe. But that's not necessarily true. So what do we get out of this with forming impressions? Instead of engaging in automatic processing through the use of physical appearance, through the use of implicit personality theory, and through the use of assumed similarity, I want you to be aware of your surroundings. I want you to engage in conscious processing and understand that simply because you may share a similarity with someone doesn't necessarily mean that you are similar on all other levels as well. So remember that when you are forming an impression of someone the next time you meet a new person on the street. Now, the following information is not included in the textbook, but it does play a key role in how we perceive our world, and it will be tested on with the quiz and our midterm. So please keep the following 3 characteristics in mind. Some strategies that we use to perceive our world may include our past experience. So I want you to think about the roles that you play in other people's lives. Are you a son or daughter? A brother or sister, a cousin, you're currently a student, you may be an employee somewhere. What type of roles do you play? And then think about your past experience and your memories, particularly with the roles that you play in other people's lives. These past experiences and memories have been saved in your brain, so that may influence the way that you perceive your world. So if you recall the example we gave in part 1, when we discussed meeting Alejandro or Alejandra that had broken our heart, that past experience combined with automatic processing would lead us to create possibly the wrong impression on the next time we meet someone named Alejandro or Alejandra. Furthermore, culture will go ahead and influence the way that you perceive the world. Now, when it comes to culture, we're looking at the shared beliefs, values, and behaviors that you have with a group. Think about your ethnic group, your religious group, perhaps a group of friends as well. You all have your unique culture and co-cultures as well. And how we are raised will influence. This will have a significant role in the way that we perceive the world. So if you were brought up thinking, this person belongs to the American culture. If you think of the American culture, what are some stereotypes that are assumed with American culture? If you travel to other parts of the world, people may assume that Americans love fast food. So when you go to another country, they may think, you're American? Oh my goodness, you must love fast food. But that's just a stereotype. And where did we get that stereotype from? It could have been through the media, which plays a part of our culture, or maybe one of our family members or friends also share this information with us, which again relates back to culture. Finally, your present feelings and circumstances are going to influence how you perceive the world. This can be as simple as, are you feeling sick? Do you have a headache? If you have come down with the flu, your symptoms might include drowsiness and pain in your entire body. So if you are taking an exam, let's say that you excel in biology, and you're taking a bio exam, and for some reason or another, this exam just seems so difficult. Step back and examine. Perhaps you studied several hours for the exam, but that headache or those flu symptoms may go ahead and make you perceive the exam through a different lens. So again, the next time that you have a negative impression on an exam or a person, step back and think, is it my past experiences? Is it my culture? Or is it how I'm currently feeling that is causing me to have these negative impressions of this individual? So now that we understand how we perceive our world and how we form first impressions, let's go ahead and discuss the following: inaccurate perception and prejudice. So let's recall the scenario we presented earlier in part 1. You heard the words, "You look like someone who's going to blow this place up. You're not a doctor." Well, this comment is a perfect example of prejudice. So let's go ahead and define prejudice. Prejudice is when you judge a person, and this is based on characteristics of a group to which that person belongs to. So you don't even bother to think about how this perception may vary from the group. As a result, you're again using automatic processing. You're jumping to conclusions. So you may wonder, where did you get this example from? Well, let me tell you, this scenario depicted today happened in real life. In the Wall Street Journal article written on January 22nd, 2018, Sumathi Reddy interviewed various doctors who experienced prejudice in the workplace. This comment was directed at this individual on this screen, Dr. Farzan A. Navi, a physician at NYU, New York University, Langone. Similar stories were presented in the article, all with one common theme: patients who demonstrate discrimination toward a physician, just like Dr. Navi, and refuse to receive aid in the emergency room. So just because of this individual's personal appearance, the patient immediately made a negative first impression, a racist remark, and refused any assistance in the emergency room. They just walked out of the ER, risking their lives. So how do we handle this situation? What do we do? This is all because an individual created a racist stereotype. So let's go ahead and first address prejudice and the types of prejudice that exist. So here's prejudice. We already understand that when you are being prejudiced, you're judging a person based on group characteristics, not realizing that this individual is unique. So here are the different types of prejudice. We have racism, and racism is based on a person's race. These are physical characteristics on someone. In other words, you're examining a person's skin color, their hair type, their bone structure. That involves racism. Racism, you go ahead and make these comments based on what you see from a person. On the other hand, ethnocentrism differs from racism because this is based on culture. You don't see ethnocentrism. You see racism. So ethnocentrism is assuming that your culture is more superior than other people's cultures. Again, relating back to ethnicity. So an individual might meet someone who's always arriving late. Maybe you're friends with someone, They're always showing up late when you're meeting with them, and it might be because they fall under what we call polychronic time. So this will be discussed later in our nonverbal chapter. When someone relies on polychronic time, they're not so focused of being there on time, but instead they are focused more on the relationships. However, someone who's from a monochronic culture thinks time is money. We always have to be on time or early. So if you meet someone who's polychronic and you tell them, you know what, you really need to work on being more monochronic because that is the right way to do things. You're in America now. Well, that wouldn't be a racist comment because you're not looking at the person's skin color. You're looking at how they behave, and that might be a part of their ethnicity or culture. And again, if you're telling someone a comment and explaining to them, this culture is better than this one, you can bet that you are being ethnocentric or prejudiced. So those are two items to keep in mind. Third is sexism. And sexism is when you are prejudiced based on a person being born a man or a woman. And there were several examples presented with sexism in the examples that were listed in our journals today. So thank you so much to everyone who has listed some examples for each of these three categories. Sexism can be as simple as someone hiring an individual simply because they are a man or a woman, or you going out there and saying, you can't be a nurse, you're a man. That is sexism because you are categorizing the nursing field as strictly for women, which is not true. So remember that. We also have ageism, which is based on a person's age or age group. You're being prejudiced based on age or age group, and this can be towards any age groups. It can be as simple as people stereotyping towards younger generations, thinking, oh my goodness, all you do is text and you're always on social media. That's all you're good for. That's prejudice. They're discriminating based on age, possibly. The same thing goes with someone who is older. You shouldn't be driving, you're too old. That is ageism. So keep an eye out for those comments. You want to avoid these prejudiced comments. We have heterosexism as well, which is based on sexual orientation, and this can be discrimination aimed at someone because maybe they found out that they are heterosexual or homosexual. And if this person disagrees with that sexual orientation, then they may decide, I'm not going to hire you. Uh-oh, now you are involved with discrimination due to heterosexism. And that can get an individual in trouble. So keep an eye out for that too. Finally, there is ableism. And ableism is based on a person's abilities or disabilities. So if someone is receiving a stereotype for their disability, or maybe they are being discriminated for their disability, that would be an example of ableism. So what are the direct results of prejudice? Remember again, prejudice is when we are categorizing someone based on a group, not considering their unique talents. It can fall under any of these 6 categories that we have just presented. The direct result of prejudice is stereotypes, which are exaggerated simplifications used to describe a group. Oh, you're part of the purple people? Well, all purple people love to eat tacos. That's a stereotype because you know what? I might be a part of the purple group and I don't like tacos. Oh, all purple people, they know how to dance and they're really good at math. Well, I'm a part of the purple group and I'm not good at math, nor do I know how to dance. So even though a stereotype may sound positive, it's still a negative connotation of someone because not everyone falls under those stereotypes. So keep an eye out for stereotypes. Whether they are intended to be positive or negative, they are still stereotypes and we should minimize or eliminate the use of stereotypes. Finally, the drastic result of prejudice is discrimination, where we are simply acting differently toward a person, whether it is hiring them, whether it is choosing them as our physician. Oh, you're a part of this group? No, I don't want to work with you. That is discrimination. So for our last section, we'll talk about how do we improve our perception of others. So please click on part 3 of the lecture series.